Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar. It's just about 9:30 in the UK. I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds or so in case anybody is just about joining, and then we'll start today's session. Okay, so it's a little after 9:30, so I'm going to start the session. So as I said, welcome everybody. Welcome to all of my centres and welcome to any of Muno centres who are joining us today as well. So today's session is part 2 of the assessments sessions that we've been doing. And it focuses on local examinations and global assignments. So the first thing is just a reminder that we did have that first session last week, and that if you didn't participate in that, then please do have a look at the slides and watch the recording. You were sent a YouTube link so that you could watch that recording, because these two sessions do go alongside each other, and it's really important that you've viewed both of them. For example, in the last session, when we talked about global exams, we delved quite deeply into the role of the chief invigilator and the requirements for choosing that person. We talked about what the chief invigilator must do before the exam in terms of preparing the exam venue. We talked about the criteria for the exam venue. We talked about the need to identify candidates and how you should do that. We talked about procedures for entry to the exam. We talked about the processes that must be adhered to on the day of the exam and what you must do following the exam as well. We also talked about remote invigilation. We talked about how you request that, the necessary forms that need to be filled in and the approval, the training, and how it actually all works. So I'm not going to focus on those aspects today because last time was already quite a long session, so we wouldn't be able to do all that as well as go into the global assignments as well. So please do make sure that you are clear on those processes if you're doing the local exams next week. So in today's session, we're going to have an overview of the local exams. We're going to talk about the procedure for the local exams, but as I said, not the things that are general to all exams. We're going to talk about what's specific to local exams. We're going to have an overview of the global assignments, the procedures for global assignments. We'll look at the submission processes for both, and then the future ongoing training. So we'll start with the local examinations, sometimes called LX. So if you have a look on your activity schedule, it gives you all the key information on that. So right now I'm showing you a snippet from the new IFD program, and that's why you're only seeing 2 cycles on there, because obviously we start assessing on that in autumn and winter. So on your activity schedule, it tells you the week. So we have a local examination week, and during that week, you are free to schedule your exams anytime between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. during that local examination week. So this cycle, this summer cycle, our local examinations week is next week. So between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., Monday to Friday next week, you can schedule your exams. And those exams are also marked locally by your teachers using our mark scheme. In terms of necessary documentation, so you can find instructions for conducting these exams by going on to the live assessment section of Quartz homepage, and you will see instructions for the listening examiner for IELTS and DELS. You'll see things about Digi as well. And in the future, when we have the new program that has some local exams, there might be additional instructions for those as well. In terms of the question papers, these papers can be downloaded from the Quartz web 48 hours before the exam. So your either your center coordinator or your chief invigilator will download them and then store them securely so that they cannot be accessed by anyone and so that they are ready for the exam days. You'll only see the question papers for the exams that relate to the qualifications that you're accredited for. If you log on and you go to the section that says local examinations release, that will only be visible when we have released the exam. So if you're logging on a week early, you won't see local examination release. So once it's there, check that everything that's supposed to be there is there. If something is missing, then really you need to contact your customer support straight away so that you're ready for your exams. And the documentation that you will need. So as well as the question papers, you will also need the attendance register, the examination blank answer booklet, which is where the students write their answers, the seating plan, the chief invigilator's report, and the irregularities report. So just the same as what you need for a global exam. You still need all those documents for the local exam. And where to find them. So the attendance register, you can find that in Centre Reports on the Quartz web. All the other documents, you can find them by looking at examination documentation templates. So you'll find your chief invigilator's report, your seating plan, irregularities report, and examination blank answer booklet, or the cover page only if the students are using blank paper. So now let's look specifically at the different local exams and what specific instructions you need to be aware of for them. So the local exams include the English language listening exams. So just like your question papers are available in advance, the listening material will also be available in the same place. So it's your center coordinator's responsibility to make sure that it has been downloaded and that they've listened and checked that everything is there, and then make it available to the chief invigilator if that's a different person. The listening exam is recorded in an MP3 format, and it's just a single recording. And as I said, it's available in the same place as the question paper. All the instructions for the listening exam are actually part of that recording. So all the chief invigilator needs to do is play that recording, and the instructions for the students will be within that. The recording should be played only once, and there should be no pausing or replaying of any sections, just play it through once. Once that recording has finished, then the test is over. But you will allow the students 5 minutes just to make sure they've completed the front cover properly, that they've answered their questions, they've read through their questions and made any additions or changes that they want to make. So they do have that little bit of time to complete that part of it. Now for the speaking exam. So this is again, the DELS and the IELTS have a speaking component. With these exams, they need to be recorded. And when you're sending your samples for us to check for moderation, this speaking recording must be included in that sample. So each of the students, each candidate, is going to do the test separately. So in the room will just be the person doing the exam, the candidate, and the examiner, the person kind of administering the exam. And they must be kept separate from anybody who's waiting to do the test. So for example, on the day, you might have a waiting room where the people who haven't done the test yet are in that room. And then the candidate goes into the room, does their exam, and once they finish that, they must go a different way. They must not be allowed to re-enter the same room where those people are waiting to do the test. Also important is that the speaker, the examiner, should only use the questions that are on that question paper for that specific cycle. So for the summer 2024 question paper, you'll have a list of questions, and the examiner must stick to those questions. They mustn't sort of improvise or add anything else, just use the questions that are there. Also important that they don't follow a set pattern. So for example, if I am candidate 1 and I come in, for part A of my test, you might do topic 4 first, and then topic 2, and then topic 5, and carry on like that until you've reached the time limit. But then when candidate 2 comes in the room, you might start with topic 3 and then do topic 1 and then topic 5, so that it's always in a mixed up order and they're not getting it in the same order. Also important that you know what our requirements are for that speaking recording, because you must make sure you're adhering to this so that the samples won't be rejected. So they must all be recorded in MP3 format, and you must record every person's test as a separate file, and everybody needs to be recorded, because remember, even if you're only submitting a sample, it's still possible that we're going to ask to see the entire cohort. So everybody's needs to be recorded and everybody's saved as a separate file. You must record the full duration of the speaking test from start to finish. We would always recommend that you do a sound check at the beginning so you're satisfied with the sound quality. At the start of the test, the examiner should say the candidate's full name the same way that it appears on the attendance register, and the candidate's ID number. And the same when you're saving that file name should have the candidate's ID number and the candidate's name as it appears on the attendance register. So now when you're sending us the samples, you're sending us the sample and obviously the marks that have been given for the marks breakdown for that student as well. So please do remember that if you don't submit the samples, your speaking test won't be moderated, and those students will be required to do that test again in another cycle. So you must include the samples in your, you must include the speaking recordings in your sample. It is your responsibility to make sure that you've done that and that it meets our specifications, that it's in MP3 format. It's your responsibility to make sure that the quality is good, that we can hear everything properly. So please make sure that you've checked the sound, and we would actually advise that the candidate and the examiner should have a microphone each, just to be sure that the sound is okay, because if it's inaudible or incomplete, we won't be able to accept it for moderation. So those are the rules that relate specifically to the local exams, the listening and the speaking. Other than that, you're following all the same rules that I gave you last time for exams in general. Just a few reminders about that now. So during the exam, the invigilators, of course, must not comment or give any advice on the student's work, even if they have spotted an error or something like that, unless it's something that we at NCC Education have asked you to inform the student. And then the chief invigilator, remember that they need to put in the log, in the irregularities report, anything that is unusual, anything that happens during the exam. They need to state down the time, the students involved, and what it was that happened, so that you can report any irregularities back to us. During the exam, remember that attendance register must be signed, so that all the students' names will be there, and you get your students to sign next to their name to show that they're present. And if someone is absent, then you're going to write absent next to their name. We do not want any blank spaces, so next to each candidate's name would either be the student's signature or you would have written absent, so we know that person wasn't there. And of course, the candidates cannot speak to each other at all during the exam. If they need to say something or speak to somebody about something, it's the invigilators that they should be speaking to and not each other. Just a reminder that we do thoroughly check for misconduct in exams. And if we do find that there has been misconduct, then the students will face penalties. If you suspect any malpractice, remember you must report it in the irregularities report. I gave the example last time that maybe if you suddenly found that somebody had some notes with them during the exam and it's maybe halfway through the exam, that you would, obviously collect those notes from the student and make sure that they're not looking at them anymore. And then at the end of the exam, ask that student to remain behind, inform them that you have completed this irregularities report and get them to countersign that irregularities report, and let them know that they have a right to send an explanation to us and provide them with the email address that you see on the screen here. So that's it for the local exams. We're now going to have a look at the global assignments. So the global assignments, these are marked by your teachers, just like the local exams are, using our mark schemes. And again, if you look on the activity schedule, it makes it very clear to you the dates when the assignments are released and the dates when those mark schemes are released, and the dates when the deadlines when everything needs to be returned back to us. So in terms of the procedures for these, we'll start with global assignments. So the marking process for the global assignment, the very first and most important step is to make sure that the assignments are actually handed in to your lecturers well before the deadline to actually submit to us at NCC. So this current cycle, our deadline for submitting is the 27th of May. So the 27th of May cannot be the day that the students are handing in their assignments. You need to make sure that it's received in enough time for all the marking to take place and all the other kind of quality checks and things that need to happen to take place as well. Obviously, you know the size of your cohort, you know how long is needed for that marking process. So make sure that you have allowed enough time and set a reasonable deadline so that you can submit to us on time. I'll just point out that this upcoming deadline of the 27th of May also happens to be a public holiday in the UK. So bear that in mind if your academic standards manager or your customer support is based in the UK and you have left it until the 27th of May, you won't have that support if there's something that you require. So we would always say, don't look at the deadline as the day to submit. You really should have submitted before the deadline. So if you have support staff who are based in the UK, I would say make sure that your submissions are done maybe by the Thursday or Friday before, so that any support, any help that you need, you'll get that and you're not going to miss the deadline. So the first step is ensuring that your assignment deadline is well before submission to NCC deadline. Then you must make sure that all of the assignments are put through Turnitin to generate a full Turnitin report. So by now, if you're a new center, you should have already had your misconduct training. You should already have had training on how to use Turnitin if you're unsure about anything. And you should already be kind of confident on that. If you're not, you really need to make sure that that happens, this week and next week so that you're ready. And you should also have applied any penalties, either for plagiarism or the misuse of AI. Again, that's all explained in our misconduct training. So if you haven't had that, please make sure you do. Then your lecturers need to mark the assignments using our mark scheme, ensuring that for each task, they have given a clear mark. So we know what is the score for each task. What are the justifications for the marks for each task? We need some comments to justify those. And what is the final overall mark? And that should be made clear. And of course, you should be double checking this, maybe using peer marking in order to make sure that all your marks add up and tally up and there's no confusion about that. So that was for the global assignments. For the local exams, the only thing that's different is that you're not putting it through Turnitin, but you still need to make sure that your lecturers have marked according to our mark scheme, that they've given marks for each task, justifications for those marks, and the final overall mark is clear as well. So the steps required for submission. This is for global assignments and local exams. So from the Quartz portal dashboard, you would select cohorts. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take attendance. So once you've found your cohort, you're going to confirm attendance for this cohort by selecting attendance, and you will see that under learner registrations. And then you're going to select the component that it is that you want to take the attendance for. So you then need to select a status for each student. Please don't use registered as a status, because registered doesn't really tell us whether the student attended, whether the student submitted. Please choose one of the other options to let us know whether the student was present or absent. So if it's an assignment, by choosing present, we understand that something was submitted. Okay. And then once you've selected all your attendance, you'd obviously select save, and you'll be prompted to confirm the attendance. If at this stage you realize that you've made a mistake, you won't be able to correct the error, and you'll have to contact your customer support to do that for you. So once you've entered the attendance, you obviously need to enter the marks for the student. Again, you're going to do this from cohorts. So you're going to find the cohort and then select the candidate from the drop-down list. And now you'll be able to enter the marks for each student. So you're going to enter in the place that says result, what was the mark given for the student, and then Quartz will automatically generate the grade. Was it fail? Was it a pass? Was it merit distinction? And then you will need to add, in the section that says additional information, you need to select a marker from the drop-down menu. If you click the drop-down menu and you're not seeing the person who marked the assignment, that means that you haven't added that person in the contact manager section of Quartz. So this week, I would advise you to make sure you go on to Contact Manager and you check that all your markers are appearing as markers, as the role of a marker. And you know, make that a priority so that when you come to submit, you know you're not having to worry about it at that stage, because you won't be able to complete the submission if you have not already got the marker in there. So you would add their details in the Contact Manager, and then you would let your customer support know straight away, I've just added these markers. Please, can you action it so that I can continue with my submission? So then you'll be able to move on. Once you've added all the marks, you can select the basket to review your submissions. And at this stage, if you spot any errors, you can still, edit and make changes there. So when you're reviewing, there are 3 things that you're checking that must be there: that there is a mark for each student, and that there is a grade for each student, which, as I said, Quartz will generate, and that you have a marker name selected. I'll just go back to the point of when you're submitting the marks. Actually, there's one thing to point out, that the only unit where you enter the raw mark is DELs and IELTS. All the other units, you're entering a percentage when you're doing the marks in here. It's only DELs and IELTS when you're going to enter a raw mark. Okay. So after you've reviewed your marks, you can proceed to submit, and you'll see a message that's just basically confirming what you've just done, that you've made these submissions, and you'll see those 2 messages coming up then to confirm that. So you've done the attendance and you've inputted your marks. The next thing is to send us the sample for moderation. So because it's a sample, it means that we just want to see a selection of the marking that's been done. And we want to see this for each marker, because what our moderators are doing is checking that they agree with the marking that each marker has done. So if you have more than one marker, we will need to see a sample from each of those markers. If you just have one marker, then it's just straightforward. You're just sending us for that one marker. So in terms of how many we require, it's based on this table, which is also available on Quartz. So when you come to do your submission, have a look at this table to see how many samples we require. So for example, let's say I have 10 students that have done an exam. Then I would look at this table and I would see, okay, that falls into the 7 to 41 category. Therefore, I must submit 6 samples. Let's say I only have 4 students. Then I look at this table and it falls into the 1 to 6. Oh, that means I must send all of the students' work. It's imperative that we receive the correct number of samples. If, for example, we were expecting 6 samples, but you only sent us 5, moderation will not begin until we receive all the 6 samples that we're expecting. So it's really important that you're using this table. And if you're not sure, ask your academic standards manager or ask your customer support so you can be sure about that. And in terms of what we're looking for in that sample, we're looking for whoever has the highest mark to be included and the lowest mark to be included. And anyone that's close to the grade boundaries, so for example, a pass is 40, so anybody who was close to 40, maybe they got 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, then please include them in the sample. And the same for merit and distinction, anyone who's close to those grade boundaries, please include them in the sample as well. If anybody has been awarded a genuine 0, then please include that as well. It's quite rare. It's usually something to do with misconduct when somebody gets a genuine 0, but we would like to see that in the sample. So if you don't have any of those, you don't have anybody that's close to the grade boundaries, you don't have anybody that's got a 0, then the highest, the lowest, and a good selection in between. So what needs to be included in your sample submission? For the local exam, so remember, we need a sample of each of the different parts, the listening, the speaking, each section, we need a sample from that. But we also need the selected exam script with the marks awarded for each section. Like I said, marks for each task, what the reasons were for that, and very clearly, what is the overall mark. We also need the MP3 file of the audio recordings for the DELS and IELTS speaking exams for all the students in the sample. And then, as with all exams, we need the signed candidate attendance register. We need the completed chief invigilators report. If you completed one, then we need the irregularities report, and we also need the seating plan. In terms of how you save that, so you're going to scan each of those documents so that you create a single PDF for each candidate. So once they've completed their listening, for example, you would scan that paper and then create a PDF. So for each of the students, you're going to save their work using this convention. You're going to have the student ID, followed by the student name, followed by the name of the exam. So in this example, we've got the candidate ID, and then we've got James Brown, the candidate's name, and then we've got DW exam, Digital World exam. So you've got that for each candidate, and then all of the different samples are now going to be uploaded into, they're going to be compressed into a zip folder. So let's say you had 6 students that you've got their samples, all of their work is going to go into a single compressed zip folder. And you're going to name that beginning with your center name. So in this example, the center is NCC Education, but you'd start with your center name, the name of the exam, so like DELS, summer 2024 samples. That's when you only have one marker. Remember, if you have more than one marker, we need a sample for each of those. So in that case, instead of using the center name, you're going to use the marker name at the beginning and then DELS Summer 2024 samples. For the global assignment, what we're looking for each candidate in the sample, we need the candidate's marked assignment. Again, we need the mark scheme with the breakdown of marks for each task and reasons for that, and the full final mark clear on the front. We need a signed copy of statement and confirmation of own work. So that is the sheet of paper that the student signs to say, you know, this is my own work. It could be physically signed, or they could have typed it up and written in the box with a signature their name and dated it. So we need that. And we also need the full Turnitin report so that we can see the highlights and the originality score as well. We don't want just the receipt, it's got to be the full Turnitin report for each candidate. And you're saving it in exactly the same way as you saved the local exams. They're all the same, you know, single PDF for each student, gives you the way to name that. So for example, candidate ID followed by candidate name, followed by the name of the unit. And again, all of the samples going into a zipped folder for that unit. And you know, you've got the naming convention there in front of you. So all of our assignments and our local exams, they are all submitted to us electronically. The samples are all submitted to us electronically on the Quartz portal. Nothing is physically sent in the post. It's always electronic. And please create zip folders, not .rar files, because we cannot open those. So it must be as a zip folder. So let's have a look at how you would upload these samples. So from the Quartz portal dashboard, you're going to go to the area that says sample moderation submission. And you will see the sample moderation request relating to all the components that we are expecting to receive a sample from you. So what you registered students for. If something is missing, please contact your customer support straight away. So you've clicked on the sample that you want to submit, and then you follow the questions on the screen. So you're going to have, first of all, 2 questions that relate to misconduct. So the first question is going to ask you, was that academic misconduct, meaning plagiarism, collusion? This is referring to the Turnitin score. So you would choose yes or no. And then if you've chosen yes, you then must provide detail about what it was that you discovered. So if you put it through Turnitin and the similarity report is over 20%, then you must answer yes to that first question. And what we are then looking for in the detail is the candidate's name that was involved, or names, the candidate ID of the student or the students that were involved, what was the nature of the misconduct, and what action did you take? So in this example, the centre has answered yes, and we've got the candidate's name being John Smith. We've got the candidate's ID after that, and then we've got the detail, large sections copied from online source Wikipedia, mark for assignment set to 0. And then we've got another student, Kate Jones. We've got Kate Jones's ID. Student plagiarized throughout their assignment. Content is plagiarized from various internet sites. Similarity index is 85%. Mark for assignment set to 0. So that's where you have said yes, because it was over 20%, and then you must give us the details and then submit. So that's the first question, is asking about the Turnitin similarity report. The next question is asking you about whether there was AI misuse. So on Turnitin, you also have that AI detection tool that gives you the percentage chance that the work was generated by AI. In the case of AI misuse, our threshold for the percentage is higher. So if the percentage is 50% or above, then you would need to answer yes to the question about AI misuse and then provide the detail. So again, we need the name, the candidate ID, a brief description of the AI generated content percentage and what action was taken, i.e., the investigation that took place, the outcomes and what penalties were applied, if any. If you're unsure about our processes about misconduct or our processes and regulations around AI misuse, please reach out to your academic standards manager this week or next week so that you do understand, that you do know what we require. Because if there is more than 50%, we require you to have an investigation. The investigation may take the form of an interview or a viva with the student. And then based on that investigation, we expect that you're going to make a decision and you're going to give us the details of all that when you've answered yes. So whether you decided to penalize and give the student 0, or whether after the investigation you are happy and decided to mark it as normal, you still need to give us that information. So in this example on the screen, we have John Smith, and we've got John Smith's candidate ID, and it says high percentage showing on Turnitin report for AI generated content, with overall AI percentage at 79% for assignment. Lecturer had a meeting with the candidate who admitted to using AI tool without referencing they had done so in assignment. Mark for assignment set to 0. So we're really clear who was the student, what was the percentage, what did you do, what was your decision, what was the investigation, and what did you do in terms of your marking. And then we've got Kate Jones and Kate Jones's ID. Student had high AI generated content percentage of 51% showing on the Turnitin report. The lecturer met with the student. They claimed they did not use AI tools. Mark for assignment remains as it was marked but this is being reported here as the AI generated content percentage was over the threshold of 50%, and so NCC Education can carry out any further investigations if required. So you've got two of the two possible outcomes there. For Kate Jones, the student said, no, I didn't. And the decision was made that, okay, we're going to mark it, but we're reporting it to NCC Education so that we have the option of investigating further if we choose to. So you still need to give us the detail there. So after you have said yes or no to each plagiarism question, you'll get the guidance appearing on the screen. You'll get like a checklist of things saying, have you included this? Have you remembered to use this particular format? Have you, sent us this, that, and have you answered this question? So please go through that checklist. If you go through that and you spot something you haven't done, then at this stage, obviously you can go back and do that. And that's there to make sure that your sample is complete and in the correct format that we require. So please have a look at that. And then you can upload all of your samples submission documents. So you'd obviously make sure that you're choosing the correct cycle. In this example, it was winter 2023 sample moderation, and it was the level 3 introduction to business module. So you make sure you've chosen correctly for what you are submitting for. And once you've uploaded everything, you'll be asked to declare that, yes, I have read that guidance. The guidance that I said is going through, have you included all of this? Have you used the right format? So you're confirming that, yes, I did check all that and I have done it all properly. And then you're prompted to confirm. So submit, confirm. And then you'll see everything that you have just done. It's gonna, so in this example, it's showing that you said yes to the plagiarism question. It's showing that you gave the detail for the bit that you answered yes. It's showing that you said no to the AI question, and it's showing that the sample's been uploaded. So you'll see all of that as a confirmation of what you've done for the, in this case, the introduction to business. That's what you've just done there. The next steps after that is that all of that is now with us at NCC Education. and the moderation process happens. During that period, it's really, really important that you keep an eye on your emails, because your customer support or your academic standards manager may be reaching out to you with questions from the moderators. It could be something is missing. It could be something couldn't be opened. It could be something is unclear. Things that we need to check with you so that moderation can continue. And normally you'll be given a deadline of when this needs to be completed by. So it's really important that you keep on top of those emails, that you read them, that you action them, because missed deadlines, the consequences could be that moderation doesn't happen for that particular unit. And that obviously will mean that your students won't get results for that, and they may need to retake that same assignment or exam in another cycle. And we want to avoid that for you. We want to avoid that for the students. So that's why, we will always reach out, try to solve it, and we will always give you a deadline. So please make sure that you're checking and that you're sticking to those deadlines and keeping the communication lines open. We will then have our assessment board once the moderation is finished, where we sign off on everybody's results. And then there will be results released, as you know, on the day, well, a few days before. You're going to get email to tell you it's coming up. Please check all these details are correct. Again, please do take note of that, and any actions that are needed, please do them. And then on the day of results release, you'll be informed, that the results are ready for you to have a look at on Quartz Web. In terms of useful resources relating to everything that we've been talking about in these 2 assessment webinars, please do have a look on our website. We have lots of useful policies around academic regulations, around misconduct, AI use. We've got the actual examination and assessments instructions booklet, which is what we have summarized for you in these 2 webinars. Please do have a look at those so that you fully understand what the rules and regulations are. And then in terms of upcoming webinars, the next round will be misconduct. My webinar will be taking place on the 25th of June. Muno's will be the 27th of June, and Anthony's will be on the 4th of July. So you'll be getting, the link again to sign up to that so you can join. If you can't make it, we'll send you the recording afterwards. So that will really look in detail at our misconduct policy and our rules around it. I'll talk about AI and all of these things that I'm sure you would like to know about. And then I'm just going to finish off with some reminders for transition dates for our new programs. And I will send these slides to you afterwards, so you'll be able to have a copy of this. But it is actually available on the VLE as well. So the key dates in terms of moving over to our new specification. For the Level 3 IFD, the operational end date will be the 28th of February 2025. So that is the last cycle that you can enroll any new learners. So any new learners starting after the 28th of February next year will need to be enrolled onto the new version, the 2024 version. They can no longer do the old one. And the last assessment cycle will be winter 2027, but that is to be confirmed later. And you've also got the dates there for the level 3, level 4 and 5 diplomas in computing. So the operational end dates for them will be the 7th of April 2025. So after that date, any new learners will need to be using the 2024 specification. And again, the last assessment cycle is winter 2027, to be confirmed. Okay, so that is it in terms of my presentation today. We still have some time, I think. So if you would like to put any questions in the chat, please do so. Or you can reach out to me or Muno or your customer support if you've got any questions or concerns about what you've heard today. I'll just wait a minute to see if anybody does have anything they want to put in the chat. Hopefully all was clear. Okay, fantastic. It doesn't look like we do have any questions at this stage. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I hope you found the session useful. The slides will be going out later, and once available, I'll also send you the link for the watching the video. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinars happening in June and July. Thank you and goodbye.